Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Bold Predictions. I am Zach Carpenter. He is Greg Smith. He is Steve Marek, and he is Jeff Ekstrom. And boys, I got some bragging to do over you guys this week. Last week, it was all a united front against me, three against one. I was all picking Indiana and me picking Nebraska, and boom, here's the winner. So now I'm 3-2. You guys are 2-3 on the season with final score predictions. What do you have to say for yourselves, guys? Greg, what do you guys say to yourself for yourself?
I feel like we were all, I can speak for everyone when I say that we were very justified in having Nebraska in prove it mode for that game. Of course, it was a winnable game, and it ended up being a game that they won, and they proved that correct. But that doesn't mean that they were going to go out there and do it. We had to see it. So yeah, that's what we have to say for ourselves, is that we did not take the leap of faith that you did, I guess. But that's why it's called Bold Predictions.
Yeah, like I'm coming in here a little facetious bragging because I made that score prediction. I'm like, I'm not standing my ground that firmly here. I could easily see the score being flipped. But Steve, what anything surprise you about that game, about how they were able to pull it out?
Yeah, two things. One, they won the football game, and two, the defense just kind of turning things around. Bill Busch, obviously, I think a lot of the questions going into that game was, how much of an impact can one guy truly make in basically 2 weeks, the bye week, and then the week leading up to the game. And I think our questions were answered. That Bill Busch, obviously, what he did, simplifying the defensive playbook, limiting the calls. I think that really made an impact. It seemed like the guys were playing faster, looser. They were having fun. They had some momentum. Then they just kept building on it, wound up shutting Indiana out in the second half and limiting them to 67 yards rushing, which, I mean, before the game, you would have absolutely not agreed that was going to happen, but it happened and held them to, I think it was 5 yards in the fourth quarter. They absolutely won and dominated the fourth quarter. Casey Thompson threw a 71-yard bomb to Trey Palmer. It was just a lot of good things going on. But yeah, I mean, I was excited to see if they would actually pull it out and win the football game, and they proved me wrong. So got to give credit where it's due. Good job.
Yeah, Jeff, you're the last one here that Nebraska proved wrong, and they were in prove it mode. And I mean, like Greg said, you guys are just more than justified in picking against them. So what stood out, Jeff, from Saturday's game?
Well, first, I want to say that if me, Greg, and Steve are all 2-3, the same record as Nebraska right now. I just want to point that out. But also, I think Malcolm Hartzog had a really good performance there, along with the defense on Saturday. True freshman. I mean, in the first half, when I was paying attention to him the entire time, Connor Bazelak only passed 1 for 5. Thrown to a receiver covered by Hartzog, and then of course the punt block return for a touchdown. So he's really impressive, young player. Mickey Joseph, Bill Busch have all spoken really good about him, and so I'm excited to see what he takes from that performance and see what he can do for that secondary moving forward.
Yep, and since we're on the subject of Malcolm Hartzog, first off, the Mickey Joseph lightning round press conference on Wednesday had. I sent the video clip to these guys, and it was my favorite Mickey presser moment of the year. And there have been a lot of good ones, but he was asked, Malcolm Hartzog really stepped up. Have you seen any other young guys, freshmen like that, who can make a similar impact? And Mickey just very succinctly and bluntly just said no, and then kept the same deadpan look on his face. It was just, I started laughing out loud when I was watching it back, just because his straightforwardness it's so blunt and just out there. So it looks like Malcolm Hartzog is the only freshman or young player like that who is due or is in for an continued increased role, I guess we could call it, after his first career start. And special teams touchdown in his first career start, which we've gone over ad nauseum. But I'm gonna actually start off bold predictions today with since we're talking about him, with a Malcolm Hartzog related prediction. And he scored his first career touchdown last week, boys, and this week he's gonna nab his first career interception for like we talked about last week, whenever Nebraska has those turnovers, they come in shorter quantities, but seems like they're always impactful. So that's my first one. Malcolm Hartzog, first career interception. Book it, lock it down. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I think my first one, I'm gonna stay on the defense, and I've been thinking about a player that I feel like we had talked about or had not talked about enough leading into this game, that was kind of underperforming, and that was Ty Robinson. Right, he went out and had a great game this past week. Really liked what we saw from him. He had multiple coaches talking about kind of unlocking him a little bit this week. And I think there was a quote out there about Matt Millen seeing him in a walkthrough and saying, hey, he's got more to give, which is 100% true. And really with Ty, it's just about getting him to play kind of with that mean streak. Like, he's a really sharp kid, really nice kid, and he takes that out onto the field sometimes and also overthinks. But my prediction related to him with all of that preamble is that I think that he has 2 sacks this coming week, which would be a huge thing for a defensive lineman at Nebraska. It just doesn't seem that happens very often. But then also him stacking another really good game going forward. So 2 sacks, write it down, Ty Robinson.
You guys are getting in on the pass rush bowl predictions now. I think I made it for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, now I'm nervous. Now that you say that and remind me of that, like I'm back to being nervous. Thanks.
Yeah, it was the cart kiss of death, as they call it, the cart curse, where I said it, and then as soon as I didn't, boom, what they had last week, that Garrett Nelson career high and 2 sacks, which funny presser moment. Nebraska spokesperson Keith Mann told the media, Garrett Nelson career high 2 sacks, and he was just like Steve mentioned, he was like giddy like a kid in that press conference. He just goes to they announced 2 career high with 2 sacks, and Garrett Nelson goes, baller. I thought that was a funny moment. So Steve, do you have a Garrett Nelson bowl prediction, or are you going elsewhere?
No, my bold prediction is going to be somebody who lines up behind Garrett Nelson at safety, Marquise Buford Jr. I think he's going to have a career high 10 tackles on Friday. Now, just a little bit of looking at Rutgers offense. Sean Gleason, the offensive coordinator who came over to Rutgers from Oklahoma State a couple seasons ago, the Scarlet Knights offense is still trying to get things going against the better teams that they've played. You know, not every team is going to be Wagner University, where they beat 66-7. And the passing offense is right down ranking in the Big Ten conference. It's right by Iowa, and you never really want to be next to an offensive category next to Iowa.
That's the second straight week you've said that.
Yeah. Trying not to pile on the old Hawkeyes, but I just have to say it. But offensively with the run game, it hasn't been that bad. And so I think, you know, with what we've heard from Bill Bush on Tuesday, when he said it was going to be a big man's fight, that tells me that, you know, and this happens with football all the time. I mean, it's how games are won and lost. This one will be decided by the line of scrimmage. And I think Nebraska is going to want to put as many bodies in the tackle box as they can. And I think Marquise Buford does a really good job of being a box safety. So I can see him creeping down closer to the line of scrimmage and getting, you know, another hat in there and helping against run support, because I don't know who's going to be out there to take the first snap for Rutgers offensively at quarterback. Evan Simon is kind of the pro style quarterback. He's maybe the safest bet. Noah Vedral, no idea what he's doing. He's been battling an upper body injury. They're treating it like hockey injuries, an upper body injury at Rutgers. And he had 4 carries against Ohio State, but he did not attempt to pass. I don't know if he physically can attempt to pass, but with Gavin Wimsatt, another dual threat quarterback who has a bright future, he's not playing either because he's hurt. And they might toss in an H-back, a fullback, a tight end named Johnny Langan, who began his career at Rutgers as a quarterback, but he's kind of grown into a tight end body and a tight end frame. He's a really, really good athlete and runner. So I think it's going to be a long day in the trenches in this one. And I think Marquise Buford is going to do a lot of good things helping out in there. And his high right now, his career high for tackles in the game is 7. And I think he's going to bump that up to double digits with 10.
Yeah, well, Steve, you predicted Isaac Gifford for a career high in tackles one week, and I'm pretty sure he either got there or got close. So,
I think he did.
Congrats, Marcus Buford, on a career high night Friday, which is gonna happen with the confidence from Steve, backed by him. But Jeff, that we heard a lot of Rutgers related analysis there from Steve. I don't know if you've got more on the Rutgers side, or if you're going more Nebraska side here. What's your first bold prediction?
I'm gonna stick with the Scarlet Knights here. We're gonna do a little flashback. Aaron Crookshank, who spent his first few years at Wisconsin, transferred to Rutgers in 2020. That was his first year there. He's a senior now, and he's had some pretty good success against Nebraska. 98-yard kick return for a touchdown in that 2020 matchup, Rutgers and Nebraska. 2019 first quarter 89-yard touchdown to tie the game after Dietrich Mills touchdown in that 2019 matchup with the Cornhuskers. And then even 2018 didn't have a touchdown, but he had 3 returns for 90 yards. So this guy really knows how to get it done as a returner. So if you're a better out there for an anytime touchdown, put that down for Aaron Crookshank. I'm saying he gets it done, whether that be a return or receiving. He's averaging 4 receptions through the first 5 games this year, including a couple of scores, but kind of limited in the return game. 5 returns, 100 yards, which is still pretty good, but no touchdowns. And guess what? That means he's due. And with Nebraska on deck coming to Piscataway, I think it's a perfect time for him to get that first score of the year.
Well, on the flip side, Jeff, we're talking anytime touchdowns. If you're better out there, if they do anytime touchdowns for college football players, I know they do for the NFL. I'm not sure if they do in college, but if they do, and if you are better, bet on Anthony Grant anytime touchdown, because I've got my second bold prediction is Anthony Grant with a 25 plus carry, 150 plus yards, and at least 1 touchdown. I wanted to just go with 100 plus yards, but I figured I'd go with the show's namesake here and get bold with the prediction, because Rutgers' run defense is actually pretty solid. They're allowing 95.6 yards per game rushing, which is one of the better numbers in the Big Ten. But I kind of wanted to highlight Anthony Grant after he had a career high, or season high at least, 32 carries last week, 136 yards, didn't get in the end zone, but he became a workhorse for them. I think since AJ Allen went down, I have a feeling we're going to continue to see increased snaps and increased carries for him. Gabe Irvin came in. He ran the ball really hard with his 16 snaps total that he got. And I believe Anthony Grant had 64. I looked that up later to get the official number, but it's something like that. And I just think Anthony Grant, he's having, and Greg and Steve and I were talking about this the other day, he's having sort of quietly having an all Big Ten caliber season. A lot of his numbers rank right up there at the top of the Big Ten leaderboard with Chase Brown, Blake Corum, and the rest of a loaded position in the conference. And I think Anthony Grant may not be getting as much publicity or love as the recruiting kids call it, because of how loaded that position is, and because Nebraska is frankly sitting here at 2-3. And I think team's overall record obviously has an impact on those type of races. But we're 5 games in. He's got 114 carries for 600 yards, 5 touchdowns, and I think he's going to continue that great start to the season that he's had, and showing himself as a true RB1 with 25 plus carries, 150 plus yards, which would be pretty astounding effort. And if he hits those numbers, I don't foresee an avenue for a Nebraska loss if they're churning yards out on the ground like that. But Greg, what do you think? What do you think about the prediction? What do you got for your next one?
Yeah, I actually like that prediction quite a bit, because it rolls into mine a little bit. Because listen, okay, Rutgers' rush defense, as you mentioned, and why that's bold, their rush defense has been good. Their defense in general has been pretty good outside of that Ohio State game where they got 49 put on them, but who's not going to get points rolled up on them by Ohio State. They gave up, was it 27 to Iowa, but Iowa scored 2 non-offensive touchdowns in that game. So the defense didn't really surrender that the same way as Nebraska's defense this past weekend against Indiana with whatever that was with the fumble touchdown situation when Chuba Purdy came into the game. Sorry for even bringing that back up. So all that being said, I think Nebraska is going to open this thing up a little bit. And my second bold prediction is that Nebraska ends up scoring over 30 points in this football game. Wacky things happen. Nebraska seems to always be like, we went through this last week, right? We were trying to figure out about, Vegas, they're usually right. They know a thing or two, but we just couldn't go with it. I'm going to do that again, but the other way, and say that Nebraska actually scores more points than expected and scores at least 30 points in this game on a weird Friday night in Piscataway.
Yeah, I think the weird vibes is something we keep saying because it is weird. It's even for us, yesterday was Tuesday. We thought it was Wednesday. I think up until 3:00, we're like, oh, it's Tuesday. We got to shift gears a little bit here as far as when we were going to record this and a couple of things on the back end here. But Nebraska 30 plus points from Greg. The over under right now as you record is 48.5. Nebraska is favored by 3 points. And it's interesting that Nebraska has now been favored in 5 of 6 games this year outside of the Oklahoma game, which is weird, is it not, Steve? It's got to be weird that Nebraska's been favored in almost every game this year.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of tells you something about the Big Ten because they've already played Northwestern, now Indiana, and now Rutgers. It's kind of the bottom half of the conference, and it just kind of tells you the state of what the Big Ten West and just the Big Ten in general, outside of the juggernaut Ohio State, is. But it's always just the glimmer of hope with Nebraska. Always, they'll for years and years and years, there'll always be a what if, and with Nebraska. So definitely weird.
The Husker hype train, as I call many others call it in the off season. And who are we hyping up for your second bold prediction here, Steve? Anybody?
Yeah, so I'm going kind of piggybacking off of you with the run, and I agree with your Anthony Grant prediction. It's an excellent prediction, but I have 150
yards too. Look at that.
No, I'm going a little off the reservation here. You remember, guys, Jacques Yant still on the team, he's
still there.
Still there. I think he's going to have a career high 2 touchdown runs. Now, I think that's because Anthony Grant is going to do a lot of the legwork from the 20-yard line to the 1-yard line, and they're going to give him a rest. They're going to put Jacques Yant into a goal line short yardage situation, just like they did against Indiana, and he's going to power it in there. I think it's going to happen twice. So Jacques Yant, all right, two rush touchdowns.
For all you college football fantasy players out there, if there are any, put in Jacques Yant in your flex, says Steve Marek. That is bold to predict.
Yeah, I figured I'd go extra bold because I don't know if my Marquise Buford Jr. 10 tackles is bold enough because he's a good player. And
only because you've been so good at predicting tackle situations. That's the only reason that it's not bold.
Yeah.
Right. I was gonna say it might as well be just a lock. I mean, it's barely even a prediction at this point when you're predicting the.
Well, now it's not going to happen because we're talking too much about it.
That's what we're trying to get. We want to go up in the standings here, Steve. This is a battle to the death here. But Jeff, what do you got? I don't know if you're picking back off of some of the stuff Steve said, but what's your last bold prediction?
Well, guys, in the Big Ten, I think specifically it's a punter's world and we're just living in it. So I'm going to go with Brian Buschini. This is going to be a punter's game. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. And so I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for him to get rolling. And so that's why I think he gets 3 punts inside the 20-yard line on Friday. He has 9 total this year. And that includes a 50-plus yard punt. He's had 4 of those this year already, so almost won a game. So that is my bold prediction. I think he's going to have a pretty good game.
Predicting a Nebraska punter to have a big night, probably a little safer than Greg's punt returner for Nebraska to have a big night that he did a few weeks ago. What was it? He's a punt return for 20-plus yards.
And specifically Ollie, right? And
hey, shout out to Ollie Martin for getting 3 catches that previously he did not make in his career.
That is true.
a lot of people don't like how he maybe like is looking at the defense and maybe shying away from contact. He did not shy away from contact against Indiana. He came down with those puppies. So I was really happy for Ollie.
I wonder, is that we talked about this a little bit yesterday's, we're recording this on Wednesday, it was Tuesday, the days are all messed up, but in rapid recap this week, we talked about the Mickey Joseph effect, right? Do you think that that's something that maybe is because of, do you think that maybe Mickey saw something on field, or maybe even Mark Whipple, but given what he said about how he has to treat the team to get results, but like somebody said something to him is kind of what my thought is on that, because you're right, those are catches that he was kind of not making early throughout the rest of his career at Nebraska.
I think Mickey Joseph is making an incredible impact on everything in the program, and that includes Ollie Martin not being afraid to catch a pass over the middle.
Yeah, I mean,
I can go with it.
I think Oliver Martin wound up being on the PFF grades, the second or third highest graded player, which is, I mean, substantial that he was able to make that type of impact. He had the touchdown catch in the end zone, right? In the first quarter, was it the first quarter? Do you have that?
That was the first touchdown of the game, first touchdown of the game. Yeah, he was efficient. Only 3 catches, but one of them was that long touchdown, and another one, I think it was like over 15 yards that got him inside the 5-yard line, I believe. So he was efficient.
Steve, are you going with the bonus bowl prediction with Oliver Martin?
Uh-oh.
No, I'm not.
He's like, I don't know if I believe in it that much.
Well, I'm making a mini bowl bonus prediction, and it's related to my final score because I hadn't actually been thinking about this at all until thinking about what my final score, what I wanted it to be, and my prediction is Nebraska 27, Rutgers 20. So I have Nebraska winning and covering again, and then I have the under hitting, which again, like I said, it was 48.5, and it's the first time since the Northwestern game, which was a 52.5 total. First time that the over under for a Nebraska game has been less than 61.5. It's been 61.5 or higher the last 4 games. But I've got the under hitting with 27-20 final score. And in looking back at the kicking numbers, Timmy Bleekrode has only attempted 3 kicks this year. He's 1 for 3. And it was sort of one of those stats that I didn't pay any attention to. And then you look back, it's like, oh yeah, all the scores have been an even divided by 7. When you look back at is 35 last week, 14 the week before, 42, and then the North Dakota game was 38, and then 28 before that, Northwestern. So I've got an extra little mini bowl prediction with my final score with Timmy Bleekrode kicking 2 field goals as part of that final tally. But Greg, what do you got as we go around the room here with our final scores?
Yeah, so I've already given away a little bit of the score, since I think that Nebraska is going to post up juggernaut like plus 30 on the scoreboard. So I've got Nebraska winning this one 31-20 over Rutgers. I got Nebraska winning, covering, and the overs hitting, which makes me a little bit nervous now that I've said that, especially with the overs. I think that part of it makes me the most nervous, to be honest. But I've got to stick with my original bold prediction. So Nebraska 31-20 and a winner.
Greg hypes up this 30+ point for Nebraska.
I feel it. I think I should get it. I'm trying to hype it up so then I can get that bonus. Let me get that bonus point.
All right, Steve, what do you got for a final?
Yeah, Nebraska wins this thing 27-17. I just am not impressed with what Rutgers has going on offensively, and I know when they're playing FCS competition, their average right now, it drops down. Their scoring average drops down to 14.5 points per game when they're playing an FCS defense. Now an FBS defense. Now I know at times Nebraska's defense hasn't looked like a FBS defense, but against Indiana it did. And I just think all this positive momentum, all these good vibes around the program, they're going to continue on this road trip, and they're going to play a bad offense, and I think it's just going to go well, and they're going to hold them to around 2 touchdowns, and maybe they get a field goal in there too. So I think 27-17, Nebraska flies home to Lincoln, a winner.
Yeah, and completely different matchup, right, this week. That's what Mickey was talking about today. That's what the coaches have talked about. Passing, more of a pass-heavy, up-tempo offense against Indiana. Rutgers, they're expecting a more run centric. I think Mickey said 907 drills, so they're expecting a hard-nosed run oriented game to take place Friday night. So Jeff, what do you got? You got another low scoring one like Steve does?
Yeah, I do. I got actually, they better not disappoint me now, but I'm picking Nebraska 24-21. Just looking at Rutgers, they're just so bland. There's nothing that stands out. I don't know. It just, nothing feels good around them. And I like what Steve brought up about positive momentum, because you got to remember there's only 12 games in a football season. That's not a long time. And at any point where you can get any sort of good momentum rolling, even if it's just one win, that could pay big dividends down the road. Just look at Kansas and what they came into this year with. They get one win and it just snowballs now into 5. So I think with what Mickey Joseph's doing with the team, I just think things are going really well at the moment. And I think that continues on Friday. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think they pull it out.
Well, they do have one flashy thing, and that's Greg Schiano with starting fights on the sidelines of Ohio State games between him and Ryan Day. That was a flashy electric moment. But I think
something about that play, Zach, Aaron Crookshank was the guy who murdered that punter on the sideline when they ran that fake punt in the fourth quarter, right?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, so Aaron Crookshank's status for at least first half, maybe, I have no idea. Greg Schiano failed to let everybody know his status, shocker, at his press conference. So
no, you don't say.
Yeah, I don't know if he's gonna play. I don't know.
Well, that does throw an interesting wrinkle in things, not just on Jeff's prediction, but just the entire game in general.
For sure,
he does wind up sitting out, or if he's a full go. So another thing to keep an eye on as Nebraska kicks off against Rutgers from SHI Stadium at 7 Eastern, 6 Central on Friday night. Should be a hard-nosed game, maybe a weird game, but we will see what happens, and we'll be keeping an eye on all of our bowl predictions and final score predictions. Steve and I will be boots on the ground over in New Jersey, and we'll have coverage for you on nebraska.rivals.com and the Inside Nebraska YouTube page, and we'll see if Nebraska can cover that 3-point spread, if they can pull out a win for what would be their first Big Ten winning streak since 2018. So plenty to look forward to. In the meantime, he is Greg Smith. He's Steve Marek. He's Jeff Ekstrom, and I am Zach Carpenter, and we will catch you guys again next time.